Burpee broad jumps, one of the most dreaded stations at every Hyrox race. In this video, you will learn everything you need to know to become a burpee killer. We will talk about standards, technique, strategy for your next race, and how to train every aspect of the burpee broad jump. Let's talk about the standards. The most recent ones you will always find in the official Hyrox rulebook, which is linked in the description down below. First of all, you will find a line when you approach the burpee broad jump station. What Anais is going to do now is she's going to place her hands right behind the line and then jump or step down into the bottom position where her chest makes physical contact with the floor. This is one requirement. Then she can jump or step up into the burpee and take her jump from there. First of all, we always have to have our feet in parallel. This is for the jump and also for the landing. So you're not allowed to jump or land with staggered feet. So if you could demonstrate how not to do it. We're not in parallel and we're not landing in parallel. So this is how not to do the burpee broad jump from the jumping perspective. The final thing about the standard for the burpee broad jump is that your feet are not allowed to come past your hand when you're getting out of the bottom position of the burpee. So Anais is going to demonstrate a good rep first. And now you're going to demonstrate a rep of how not to do it. So very simple, don't overstep your fingers when stepping into the burpee broad jump. So make sure that when you train the burpee broad jump, that you train according to this exact standard to avoid any penalties. During a Hyrox race, you will get one warning, and then at the second warning, you will receive a 5-meter penalty according to the most recent rule. When considering which technique you should use, take into consideration what is your strategy for the race, what is your mobility, and most importantly, where's your fitness at right now? Let's start with the double jump burpee broad jump. That means you're jumping down, you're jumping up into the burpee, and then you're doing your broad jump. This technique is the fastest, but also the most taxing. That means it has the highest metabolic demand, and it will increase your heart rate the most, and also will make your legs feel the burn. To ease it off a bit, where we still jump down, but then we have a step up, which allows us to take an extra breath and then go into the jump. Jump down into the burpee, step up, and once the second foot is there, we're going to go into the broad jump. This is usually a very good compromise. We're still moving relatively quickly while making the movement easier and less taxing on the body. If we want to make it even easier and slow it down a little bit more, but just continue to keep moving, we could step down, step up, and then go into the jump. So step down, step up, and jump. Step down, step up, and jump. You will be able to move a bit more fluidly, and this usually keeps the heart rate a bit lower. If you're a beginner and this is going to be your first Hyrox race, we recommend the knee to stand technique, which makes it even a bit easier on the heart rate or like on the body in general by taking more steps to get into the burpee and out of the burpee. Here you need to be very careful that you're not overstepping. So you don't want to get your feet past your hands, otherwise you're at risk of getting an O-rep. So you can think of these 4 techniques as kind of a spectrum from hardest and fastest to easiest and slowest. And what we would always recommend in terms of strategy for your race is that you try to move as continuously as possible without ever stopping. So you're always making progress and moving further through your race without having a dedicated rest in between. And by choosing your style of burpee accordingly, you will manage to do this, according to your fitness, obviously. So there might be a different strategy though, compared from individual competition or individual racing to racing in doubles or in a team. Because the advantage you're having in a double is you have a dedicated rest period where you're not working. That means you can recover to be more explosive again and then be able to do the double jump burpee. And if you're well coordinated with your partner, obviously this is something to practice, then you will be able to breeze through the burpee broad jump station. we can either have a very long jump or a very short jump or something in the middle. So the first one is going to be with a bit more effort, and she's going into a bigger broad jump, but we could also take a relatively small jump. And this is something we would recommend you to try out in training. Set up your length of 20 meters and see how many jumps or how many burpees or reps of burpee broad jumps does it take you to clear the 20 meters. And this way you can figure out which is the most optimal length of jump you want to take. So our last tips on the burpee broad jumps are for the general style of the burpee. And this is true for every style that we're using or every technique that we have shown so far. And the first thing here is you always want to be quick off the floor. So try to be explosive without lying on your belly or on your chest for too long, because this kind of obstructs your rib cage and allows you or doesn't allow you to breathe properly or naturally. And the other thing is we take advantage of the standard for the burpee broad jump, which doesn't require us to reach full hip and knee extension at the top. So what we want to do is we want to stay as low as possible and move through these burpees quickly. This is not a position where you want to spend a lot of time in, and you also don't have to stand up. And now Anais is going to demonstrate a proper rep where we have nice fluidity, but still try to be quick off the floor and stay low to the ground. Let's talk training. To become a real burpee killer, there are several aspects of the burpee broad jump you can improve. The first one might not be the most obvious, but it's mobility. So hip mobility can significantly impact how well you will be able to get your feet towards your hands. And getting your feet closer to your hands, doesn't matter if it's jumping or stepping, allows you to cover a bit more ground with every single burpee broad jump. What we're going to do here is we're going to mobilize our hips, our hamstrings, and everything that we need to get into a better position when, for example, stepping into the burpee. So what Anais is going to do now is she's going to start in the quadruped position, going to bring her left foot to her left hand, and now she can lift her back knee and move around a bit by doing some small hip circles. And if you feel like one area is particularly tight, you can just spend some time there and try to contract your glutes to really work into that position and into that stretch. We can also add some variations where she brings the left elbow down to the floor and then opens up and does a couple of repetitions. Using this in your warm-up, so your hips and hamstrings will actually loosen up a bit and allow you to get into a better position while doing the actual burpee broad jump. And that way, you're building the muscle memory or the positions that are required to get into a good fluid movement. The second thing to improve is upper body horizontal pressing strength. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do some variations of push-ups to help us to get quicker off the floor. The first thing is a plyometric push-up or a clapping push-up, where Anais is trying to generate as much speed as possible throughout the pushing movement, that her hands are actually separating from the floor, so she's able to clap her hands. And if you want to start out on your knees or on an elevated surface, this is perfectly fine to ease into the movement. This is something you could do to start your session. Let's say you do clapping push-ups for 3 sets of 3 to 5 repetitions with a longer rest in between to really develop speed and explosiveness. Once we have done these and we want to train more for the volume of it, we could do regular push-ups. And this is something we would train with higher rep ranges, but always keep in mind you want to keep good form to really develop the muscles that are required to push yourself off the floor, and don't arch your back or go into this sagging motions where your hips are just hanging down and the only thing that is really moving is your upper body. That is everything you need to know about the burpee broad jump. If you haven't already, make sure to check out our programs in the description, and if you have any questions, let us know in the comments down below. See you in the next one.